This limited Kintsugi Heroes podcast series was made possible through grant funding provided by the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice Connecting Seniors Grant Program. If you'd like to find out more about Kintsugi Heroes, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au. Welcome to our Kintsugi Heroes special series, Connecting Seniors, where we share the experiences of ageing Australians to create connections across our communities. In this episode, John Millam had a chat with Margaret-Anne Hayes, a beacon of resilience and compassion, and known for her deep empathy, relentless community service, and her remarkable fundraising efforts for cancer research and disaster relief. Now, let's get to the conversation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kintsugi Heroes again, Stories that Matter, and this is another episode in the Connecting Seniors series. It's been quite a journey to get here, but it's enormously privileged today to speak to Margaret-Anne Hayes.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Kintsugi Heroes. Margaret-Anne, would you mind giving us a bit of background about where you started and how you began this journey?
In 1994, there was a vast drought everywhere. I used to wake up for some reason at 18 minutes past 5 of a morning, and I used to walk or sort of jog around the street. So I would have been about 54. And we lived in a street called Kokoda Avenue, which had, we were sort of at the bottom of like a hill.
Mm.
So when you started off, going up the hill. So obviously when you came back, you were a bit faster. And I don't have any psychic powers whatsoever. But I was coming down the hill back home, and in my head I heard the words, you need to start a drought appeal scheme, which I thought was a bit weird. But anyway, this was before I was in computers. I had an electric typewriter and before mobile phones. And so I thought, right, so I called it Women of the North Shore to Women of the Northwest, but it was just me, basically.
Yeah.
And I typed out, have you had a cup of tea today? Have you had a hot shower? And similar things like that. I did 2 pages. Then I printed it on our little printer, and then I started handing it round the streets in Kokoda Avenue. And it just must have been like a seed dropped in warm soil, because it just took off. And over the next 18 months, all these wonderful donations came, and people came to help me pack up. It got onto local radio and in the papers, and I would have been the fittest 54-year-old in Australia, I think, because carrying all these boxes of the most unbelievable stuff. And then I thought to myself, well, I need somebody to take it around the areas. And I mean, I was completely amateur. I'd never done anything like this before. And I put the word out, and a couple came with a truck. And so we gradually took stuff all over New South Wales. We went to all these far-flung places. And what was really interesting was, I didn't know then what I know now. What I should have done was sent all the stuff to various areas so that it could all be sorted out.
Yeah.
When I did the bushfire appeal in Cobargo just 4 years ago, that's what we did. We just packed everything in boxes and sent it to the most wonderful people in Cobargo. But then, so I was literally trying to pack everything that you need, like basic things like tea, coffee, sugar, toilet paper, hand creams, and all these things kept coming, and all these beautiful clothes. And so I did that for about 18 months. Then I brought 33 women down to Sydney. I look back now, it was just amazing. Somebody brought these women down. A coach came from nowhere and brought all these women down, and brought them back again. And then all these people from around Wahroonga, we took them into the Intercontinental, Miss Macquarie's chair, Kernan, Barra. I can't remember where else we went, but we had the most unbelievable time. It was just incredible. And then we had this huge church hall.
Yeah.
It's filled with clothes.
So how did you connect with this amazing network of helpers?
Well, I've never been frightened of ringing up anybody.
Right.
And
so this was like a lot of phone calls from people you
well, I
knew.
don't know, phone calls. I talked to everybody. Yes, I was in the local paper. And yes, it was totally before social media. And yet I think we would have sent $100,000 worth of goods. Once again, everything that you could think, actually not the kitchen sink, but I remember that for both there and for Cobargo, we sent up a laundry sink for some reason. I can't remember.
Wow.
But we sent everything you can think of. We sent so many Christmas presents for children, adults. When you think back, it was absolutely amazing. All done without any social media.
So
And
this
then
was, of course, at a time when there was a terrible drought. That's like, and
terrible drought.
then, only then, just before the fires, right, the end of another terrible drought, basically the sort of continuation of the longest drought in Australian history, recorded history.
Yeah.
So what drove you to do that? Why would you say, the country needs my help?
I think each night too, when I go to bed, I think, I'm in a snugly warm bed, or if it's summer, I'm in, nice cool bed. I've had a shower, I've got clean clothes, I've got food in my tummy. And normally my thoughts go that what must it be like to have to buy water? What must it be like not to be able to put the washing machine on and clean your clothes? Because I'm obsessive and I wear cotton and stuff all the time and I change all the time. So, and I thought what it must be like not to know that you've got enough money, to feed the children, or get up in the morning and be able to turn on a tap and get some water and have a cup of tea.
You responded to an urge to connect and support because you were able to see yourself in the shoes of people doing it tough out in the country, and then later on in fires and many other
Yeah, I guess
causes that
so.
you've embraced. At 54, right, that can't have been a new thing for you. Where did that start?
My mother worked in a factory or in retail or something. My father's a plumber. And, there were people down the street that were always, in trouble, big families, and mum always helped. I always find myself trying to help people and, give people a call or drop around with a cake, or I don't know. I've always done it. I don't know basically where it comes from, and even now at the moment, I've got, a few friends going through some tough times, and I just like to give them a call or send them a text, or I just think that there's a need for kindness.
Yeah.
There's just a need for love, and there's a need for lack of nastiness. I'm on the ABC book review. Now, you'd think the ABC book review, you could write reviews, but even there, the people write nasty comments.
Yeah.
And I think what I now am doing each day is on Facebook. I digress, all through COVID for the 4 months, I put a joke every day on the Turramurra and Wahroonga Facebook page. Absolutely terrible jokes, most of them. But, even now, somebody says to me, she said, she said, you and a friend got me through COVID. And I, looked at her and she said, I used to think if Margaret-Anne's joke there today, I can survive another day.
Wow.
And people keep saying this thing to me. So now I'm putting these things called, I don't know what they're called. Are they called memes?
Memes, yeah, with
Funny things that I get.
yeah.
I don't know where I get them from on Facebook because I'm, technically incompetent. My son says, I've showed you this before. I've showed you this before.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now I'm putting these funny little things every day because, and I said, look, I just think we need to have something each day that gives us a lift. We've lost a lot of love and kindness and patience and understanding, with the bushfires. I just thought what it must be like to sort of lose everything, to lose your photos, for people older than me to, lose their houses. So many of the people down in Cobargo, they were women in their late 60s, 70s, 80s. They'd gone down there 40 or 50 years ago and they'd hand-built their houses. They had no superannuation, no insurance. They lived. And suddenly, at my age, they're homeless. And so this time we did have social media.
Yeah.
How on earth did I start? Oh, I know. So I rang B and I said, can you put me on to somebody in Cobargo? I'd like to send some stuff down for the bushfires. So they gave me the name of this unbelievably wonderful woman, Chris Walters.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, hi, Chris, my name's Margaret-Anne. I'd like to send you some stuff down for the bushfires. What do you need? And she said basically what somebody else said to me later, well, people have lost everything.
Yeah.
So what had happened was she and another wonderful lassie, and when they'd all been evacuated to the showground, they both decided that they would take over. So they started the Cobargo Bushfire Relief Centre literally days after the fire.
Well, just on that point, right? So,
Yeah.
it's interesting. You talked briefly about the need for kindness. The world seems to be, have less of it now. When you started out in another century and then in another Australia, do you think it was kinder then? What's different about you growing up? What you knew about
We were
Australia?
poorer. Everybody was poorer. There was
Yeah.
only there were always the rich, but they weren't the mega rich. And of course, everybody went to church.
Yeah.
Well, my mother or father didn't, but I went to Sunday school and everybody went to church and there was Billy Graham and all this sort of stuff. And, people was there was, there were always the crooks, but and the madams, but they were in King's Cross. They weren't ordinary people. I was born in 1940, so when I was 10, people were still recovering from the war, and people coming back from the war. The men were having nightmares. There was a lot of domestic violence because, they didn't know what was happening. There was very little help for them. There was no building materials. We lived in a rented house, and I think through the churches and just through perhaps the mateships still, I think my childhood was one of total and utter fear.
Wow.
My earliest memory was my father kicking to pieces a doll set of mine when I was very young.
Wow.
So I spent the first 20 years of my life with my stomach curling in fear if I went home and my father was home before me and I could smell his smoke, or kids next door, the Webb kids, Kenny and Jim Webb, they'd run down the street to their father. They'd see the father coming. The father would open their arms and swing them round, and I'd see my father coming and I'd run in, I'd be wetting my knickers and I'd say to my mother, Daddy's coming, Daddy's coming, Daddy's coming. So, and in the midst of all this, Mum still helped everybody until she left. She left. But so, I do think, I don't know that anybody helped us, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about kindness and yet you describe a violent home and a home that was no sanctuary and no safety.
It wasn't physically violent. It was just my father, through his own grief. He was obviously very clever, and he got a scholarship to Christ's Hospital, a school built in 1400s in England. But then the family couldn't afford, the uniforms. But literally a couple of years after, the old boys paid for the scholarship boys. So he went as a cabin boy on a ship when he was about 13 or 14 and suffered, I think, physical, practical and psychological and sexual abuse. So I think he used his own grief.
Yeah.
He mitigated by, drinking a bottle of sweet cherry. And he was absolutely brilliant and trained all these people that went on to be, plumbing engineers or businesses.
And your mother left. That was very
when
hard.
I was older, because, she just couldn't cope anymore. Yes. I don't know. I have no idea. It's interesting. I just finished reading a book last night, which has really affected me and made me think that the way you have to start looking at life now is just when you wake up in the morning, say, today's the first day of the rest of my life. How am I going to, bring a bit of joy into the world? How am I going to be kind? How am I going to, fill myself with, a bit of joy and love? And how am I not going to whinge all bloody day? And, how am I going to find some, patience and love? And I think joy, which is incredibly hard at the moment. I mean, I've known Wayne for 54 years.
Your husband, Wayne, of course.
Yeah, my husband, Wayne. Yeah.
Who is in hospital.
He's in an aged care home. He's got latter stage dementia, Alzheimer's. I don't know. You don't, with cancer stage 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of thing, but I don't know what stage he's had. The people upstairs where he is, they just lie in a bed all day. So, but he's had it for about 10 years, and it is overwhelming. And what is interesting too is the people that understand and the people that don't. Our lovely next door neighbours have been there 5 years in November. We used to see such a lot of them, and now we barely see them unless I go in there. And he keeps saying, "Oh, I feel awful. I haven't been to see Wayne," but yet he still doesn't go and see Wayne. Wayne's only had 1 or 2 people go to visit him, and it's the unexpected friends that have often sort of newer friends that I've met through the local, MIF and, some other friends. And it's just interesting. And perhaps perhaps I expect too much from society or from friends, but this afternoon somebody's coming round. I got an email. I sent an email out with pictures of Wayne looking as he is now, just saying, how tough it is for Alzheimer's and, what a journey it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel incredibly angry, and I think, I looked after, from my earliest memory, I tried to save Mum from Dad. I tried to look after her for the first 20 years of my life, and now, the last 10 or so, whatever it is, I'm looking after Wayne. And yet he's looked after me all my life. But I think too that interesting, in this book last night, this one had a sense of guilt, and my guilt is monumental. I think even if I was Catholic, went to confession, you could do 6 million Hail Marys, but I think ever since losing my son.
You lost your son, Aaron, he was 42 years old. That's a very tough thing to talk about. So
42 and 4 months and 28 days old, actually. And I think your life changes. But I tell you what, I spent 10 years or more and I've raised 250,000, but I've actually raised a lot more of that on what you call like a second level, because
Yeah.
150,000 of mine was used on 15 occasions, 10,000 for what's called seed money
Right.
for a
So this
group.
is
And
for
what would
Can 2. So this is for
Can 2, this is Can
cancer
2.
research through Can 2.
Yeah. So we've now raised 33 million. It's all
That's
started
amazing.
by one woman, Annie
Yeah.
Crawford. And I started off with one of my dearest friends who subsequently died, and she'd had a stroke. And I said, darling, if you don't die, I'll lose 20 kilos and we'll both go in, Annie's 10K. She was Annie Crawford's
That's right.
mother.
Yeah. The walk. Yeah.
Well, I lost the 20 kilos and I did the 10K. I've written a story of the first night of the training where it was the coldest July night in 32 years. You couldn't see the end of the other side of the oval, and they said, we'll just run 3 times around the oval to warm up. And I thought, that's me finished, And
Yeah.
anyway, and then I did a half marathon the next year and won the next year. But
Wow.
we used to listen to these wonderful researchers that they'd come and give us talks of a Wednesday night. We used to train a Wednesday night and a Saturday morning. And I became obsessed with raising the money, because I thought I couldn't save Aaron from dying. And I thought, but I'm bloody sure I'm going to save another son from dying. And that's basically been my criteria, that I couldn't save Aaron, but I know what. I see this woman, she's my age now.
Wow.
And she's got a 64-year-old son. No, sorry, 62-year-old son. And she's got grandchildren. And he's married. And she's so happy. And I did that for her. I saved her son. The girl who started Can 2, who's raised 33 million, has just lost her beloved sister, who I've also known since she was 19.
Wow.
A rare cancer, bile duct cancer. It's got long proper names, but I can only pronounce bile duct cancer. And she said to me, I've raised all that money and I couldn't save Georgie. An actuary has said that I've most likely raised well over $500,000 from my money and the seed money. So I tell you what, whatever you give out, you give back a millionfold. The people in Cabargo, these wonderful, beautiful people that have become my friends, and just, it just enriches your life. You just don't realize just how much you get given back. And I think that's what these wealthy people, like, one of the Atlassian boys has just sold his house for $71 million.
Yeah.
Both of these young men own something like 5 or 6 houses worth, literally, I would think, billions. And you think, what are they doing with all that money? And you raise money, and it's the poor people. Do you know, people came from everywhere for Tobago, and we sent down. So I sent down 17 loads of the most wonderful things you've ever seen. Every single solitary thing anybody could wish for, except a new house. But we sent down. Somebody rang and said, "I need an air conditioner." No, they didn't ring. They were in one of the first trucks, and I said, "I'll get you an air conditioner." And I thought, where am I going to get an air conditioner from? Anyway, I got an air conditioner and sent it down, and the family that got that, they'd lost their farm, their house. They had a shed, and they managed to get it converted, and she had cancer, and because of the fire, she couldn't go and have the treatment. And a friend of mine who makes these $500 to $1,000 jumpers sent me down 3 boxes of, $10,000 worth of clothes, and this lady had the air conditioner, and she had these jumpers. And one night at 7 o'clock, I got a phone call, and the guy's name was John. He said, "Margaret-Anne," he said, "I just wanted to tell you it's -3 outside, And we're as warm as toast in here with our air conditioner. And I forget his wife's name, and she's wearing one of Jane's beautiful jumpers, and we're warm as toast. And you think it was worth it all just for that.
Yeah.
But the kindness of people here, the things they donated. And just this February, we did Cuppa for Cabargo at the South Turramurra Uniting Church, and we raised another $5,000. And Chris has become, one of my dearest friends. And then I got an OAM in.
Yeah, so that was my next measure. When you are recognised by the community, like you're being given an Order of Australia medal, of course. What does that mean to you?
People wrote some really, really lovely things about me, and I got some beautiful, beautiful, congratulations, saying, how much I deserved it and all that. Sad thing is, of course, that after all the help, Wayne couldn't understand. He couldn't come to Government House, and I told him that he just by January he didn't have the understanding, which was unbelievably poignant. But do you know what they did at Government House? They knew that he was poorly, and they actually made a special announcement for him when they called me up.
Wow.
Just so lovely. And the other thing is that through all of this, I met David and Linda Hurley, the Governor Generals, as I call them. And, I'm a little girl with no background, no education, and there I was sitting next to David at Government House dinner, and they came to my couple of my fundraisers and going to Kirribilli, and on first name terms with the Governor General. I mean, and what a joy they were. What unbelievably beautiful, beautiful people. Who's meeting them in Richmond. The first time I did a skydive, and the second time I did a skydive, David was the first person to give me a hug. And it was just
So you were skydiving for charity?
Oh, God, no, I'm terrified of heights. The reason I did that was I thought, if you're sitting across the road from across the desk from a oncologist who says to you, you've got cancer, the fear must be insurmountable. And I'm terrified of snakes and heights.
Yeah.
I thought not even for Cantu could I touch
Do the snakes bit.
So I did 2 skydives. They each raised about 15,000, which, but yeah, terrifying. Take my advice, don't do it.
Was it you jumping off, or was he pushing?
No, he doesn't push. Well, the first terrifying bit was when the pilot came over and you got a bit of a look, and he said, we're 3,000 feet above sea level. And I thought, I won't tell you what I thought, but anyway, I thought 3,000 feet. We've got another 11,000 feet to go. I'm going to die. And the thing that saved me, there was a young kid of about 25 who went grey. So I'm trying to say to him, "Are you all right, pet? Are you all right?" And so anyway, I was the third person. So the next terrifying thing is that this plane, it's just like a little shutter door.
Yeah.
The shutter door opens, the first girl goes, the second girl goes, and suddenly, zoom, we're sitting there, and he goes off, and you jump off. Oh, it is so terrifying. I cannot tell you. Well, I can. It would be like touching a snake. But earlier this year, or no, last year, I thought, perhaps I could touch a snake and raise an extra $250,000, and then Wayne got sick. So, and I think that's the sad thing, is realizing that I don't know how long this journey Wayne will take, but it just exhausts me. Exhausts me every single day, and I can't take on, I can't take on, doing a big fundraiser. They would take me 8 months to organise. I can do things on a small level, but
You mentioned earlier that you feel like you get back what you give out.
no, it was lovely at Government House. I thought they were never going to stop talking.
So,
because they read out, what you've done and stuff. But and somebody said to me, "It was so lovely to meet you because yours was a really genuine OAM, because, some people get them, lovely chap next to me, he'd been in the wine business for 40 years, but, mine was like volunteer, and somebody said, it's really just so lovely to meet you. And
services to the arts, for actors that get an OAM.
yeah, and I think, look, we've just nominated Wayne Oncologist, the most wonderful, beautiful, fabulous man, and I think he really deserves it.
We're talking about connecting, right?
Yes.
And that whole you have turned connecting into an art form, right? But
In what
also
way?
connecting with intention, right? So you've had all of these requirements, you've noticed something, and then you've used network and association and relationships to satisfy the needs of others.
I don't know. Looking back, I've just always had it.
Yeah.
I don't know a time. It's like I don't know a time when I haven't read or written. I've always written. Every night when I go to bed, I'm writing letters, or I'm writing articles, or I'm writing, begging letters. And that's my trick for fundraisers. You always go to the top. Go to the chairman or the CEO and say, I'm really lucky because now I can start off. Dear so-and-so, I bet this is the first letter you received from an 84-year-old skydiver. Hopefully that gets them in.
Done so much, right? Like so many things. And, the long list of accomplishments read out on the forecourt of Parliament House. What are you most proud of? What do you think about as a job well done?
I'm most proud of saving another mother from losing her son from a physical cancer, whereas I lost my son to a cancer of the soul, a cancer of the heart.
Yeah.
Grief. I lost my son to grief.
Yeah.
And what I'm most proud of is that somewhere in that $250,000, or as the actuary says, 500,000, $500,000, that the means whereby this other mother of my age still has her son. That's what I'm most proud of.
And I'm sure there are many, many sons and daughters and mothers and fathers out there that owe something to your efforts. What do you want to pass on, to people? What do you think they should know?
I really think just the words "be kind." And I think the other thing is try to not be like me, and try not be filled with guilt. You most likely, you see, I have grown all through my life. I cannot abuse myself of the knowledge of thinking that I'm the most selfish person I know. I mean, I don't know how you get rid of that, but I think really just be kind. Just, if you see somebody that needs a hand, sometimes, all it needs is a touch of a hand. All it needs is a phone call, or if you have to use some bloody texts, but just if you see a need, you don't have to make casseroles or bowls of soup or anything, my bit, which I've done all my life. But there is so much beauty in the world. There's beauty in people's faces, there's beauty in people's souls. And I think perhaps have a bit of patience with yourself. Try to see that whatever you've done, you've most likely done the best you can. You mightn't think so, but you most likely have. And I think see the joy in the world. And that funny old meme, dance if nobody's watching.
Yeah, yeah.
Get out there and dance. I mean, that's what I've decided I'm going to do. I'm going to start and put some rock and roll on every day, and I'm just going to dance. Actually, John, you said, where's it all come back to? From my earliest memory at church, it was do unto others as others would have, do unto you. And I mean, always the King James Bible.
Yeah.
I can't cope with these modern, newspaper type Bible. Yeah, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I think, that's it's a pretty it's a pretty reasonable thing if you, put yourself in their place, or if you think, if I'm in that place now, um, what would they do for me? President Kennedy not asked not what your country can
Yeah.
do for you, but what you can do for your country. You don't want to do it as far as your country. You might want to just do it, by your neighbour or, by a friend you haven't talked to. Or I find I get friends in my mind and I think I've got to ring them. Shakespeare said there's more in heaven and earth than this world dreams of.
Yeah.
And I think in a way there is. I don't have any of those skills. I have one or two friends who do. Be kind. Try and be as patient as you can. It's not always possible. You just want what is best for those that love you. And I think when people were giving things in Tobago, one guy came and he had his car filled with bottles of water from Aldi. And he said to Chris, I'm really sorry I couldn't bring this till now, but I didn't get paid till yesterday. Now, there's somebody who lives from week to week. So put something into the grassroots community and help the people that are grassroots, that have nothing but give everything.
Yeah.
They'd go back to being kind and do unto others as you would have others do unto you, I think.
Yeah.
Buy somebody some flowers today. And I tell you the other thing I do, and you can do, I've done this for 30 years, but now I'm old, I get away with it. People don't think I'm weird. If I pass anybody anywhere and they look pretty or their hair's nice or their nails are nice or they've got lovely shoes on or whatever, I say to them, gosh, you look gorgeous today. And people they just love it. It doesn't take much, does it?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And it's such wisdom. And mostly, I need to say how grateful I am. It's for the time I've had to hear a little bit about your life's triumphs and tragedies. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing that with myself and the Kintsugi Heroes listener. It's been wonderful, Margaret-Anne.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Connecting Seniors, a Kintsugi Heroes special series. Thank you to Colin Lilly for permission to use Broken as our theme music for this series. If you enjoyed this conversation, share the podcast with a friend and let us know by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support Kintsugi Heroes and the stories we share, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au and follow the instructions to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.